Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Edie Summers, and I see Dr. Jenny just joined us. So I'll bring her on in just a moment here. Hi, Dr. Jenny. I'm just going to read her bio first, and then I'll bring her into the studio. So Dr. Jenny Tufankayan is a naturopathic physician and functional medicine educator. And let's see, sorry, I'm just going to I have this on YouTube. I have her bio on YouTube, and of course, it's running live on YouTube as well. So she teaches patients, students, and physicians to increase understanding of complex chronic disease. As she educates, she empowers, no matter to what audience. She instills new perspectives, awareness, and ultimately hope. And she sees the potential for a positive domino effect of her work. By guiding others to increase their energy, they in turn have the vitality to live their purpose, to shine their light fully, and benefit all who cross their path. And I'm going to read a little bit more from her bio, and then I'll bring her on. I just want to say that, of course, we are streaming live to chronic fatigue support, and we're also on YouTube. And of course, Dr. Jenny, I'm so grateful that you're here because so many people are suffering from CFS. Dr. Jenny has had CFS herself. She began treating chronic illness she's been treating chronic illness for 2 decades. She's a CFS sufferer herself. She had no choice but to dig deep into the literature and uncover the root causes of CFS. And through her research and experience, she developed an effective roadmap for lasting change in her patients. So seeing them flourish after they had given up all hope. Many of these patients have seen many wonderful physicians, but they did not know how to assess all the potential root causes of ME/CFS. And I think a lot of us know that that's definitely the case. It really takes someone who understands, who's been through it, not ideally, but it. I'm sorry that you've been through it, Dr. Jenny. And she's a licensed naturopathic physician. She got her training at residency at National University of Natural Medicine. That's formerly NCNM. She went on to be a sought-after adjunct clinical faculty member and ran her own successful private practice in Portland, Oregon. And Dr. Jenny Tufankayan holds a BA in political sociology from the Evergreen State College. She loves to teach. She has and created online and in-person tools for practitioners and individuals who desire to live with more vitality. She's also a mom of 2, happily married, and loves her time outdoors and in the kitchen. And on that note, I'm going to welcome Dr. Jenny onto the stage here. Hi, Dr. Jenny. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time. I heard you on a conference. I was telling your assistant, and you were just right on what you were talking about with kind of the causes of CFS. And I would love to dive deeper into that. But first, I'm wondering if you're open to sharing a little bit more about maybe your backstory. You said that you had CFS yourself. I would love to, I'm sure everyone listening would love to know more about your journey with that, and then how you got into research and naturopathy and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me. I think we're on a shared message. I'm sorry, the mailman just arrived, so my dog was
No
alerted to
worries.
the danger in the house. The storm will pass in a moment.
I totally hear you. It's like me being on YouTube on 2 different devices. I totally get it.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Should I
I
keep talking?
can, yeah.
Okay,
And I'm
great.
going to turn off my phone here so I'm
Yeah,
not echoing, but I totally get it. I know life is happening.
all around us all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on here. Yeah, my journey started when I became aware that I had chronic fatigue syndrome was actually my second year of medical school.
Mm.
And pretty much I was convinced I could be Wonder Woman at that point in time. I had decided to become a physician when I was 6 months pregnant with my first child, and I was single parenting, and I thought, sure, I want to become a doctor. And so I started doing pre-med when he was a newborn baby,
Wow.
started full-time medical school when he was 3, and was pretty sure I could take on the world, and was attempting to have a second child while I was in medical school.
Oh, wow.
Ended up having a couple of miscarriages, and one of them was at 17 weeks. I'd also had a lot of intense things happen to me that year in medical school, with 5 different close friends and family members dying, and it
Oh
was
my
just a lot.
gosh. Wow.
And looking back, I know you work a lot with people who are dealing with stress and that kinds of things. And we start looking at what are the things that were the precursors to us getting chronic fatigue. And a
Right.
lot of stress can definitely be one of them.
Yeah.
I remember I had friends who were in medical school with me, and they didn't have children, and they would be like, well, we're going to go meditate. Do you want to come with us? And I'm like, well, no.
I wish, but yeah. Right.
I don't have
I'm gonna go take care of my children and sleep.
Right. My social time was in line for the bathroom. Like that's the time I had to hang out with people, or if we had a study project together, that was my social time.
Right.
I didn't know about meditation at that time. And my second miscarriage was at 17 weeks, and I hemorrhaged and passed out and had to be rushed to the hospital. And it really, that threw my body physiologically into this state of shock and trauma with all the blood loss. And it triggered my emotional body and my energetic spiritual body. All three of them crashed at the same time. And this is a place that I come from that may be different from other practitioners. And I think is really key to understanding how it is that we get into a chronic fatigue, ME, long COVID pattern, and how we can get out is we really do have this physical, emotional, and energetic body.
Yeah.
And when they all go out, we are really down. So that's what happened to me. I was in bed, had to be walked to the bathroom. If I had high energy, my head was on the pillow. If I was low energy, it was flat. I couldn't handle the energy of anyone in the room.
Right.
My son was 5 at that time, and I love being a mom. And I could not handle his energy in the space. He would have about 30 minutes with me a day where he would get to watch a video, and my eyes were covered because I couldn't handle the stimulation of the video. I was not able to eat. I couldn't sleep. I was suicidal. I had deep anxiety for the first time in my life. I was really not well. People came back later and were just convinced they confessed that later they were very worried I was actually going to die because I had my circulation was horrendous. I had ice up to my knees. I know a lot of people get circulation issues and they get chronic fatigue. I was ice up to my knees.
Oh, wow.
I was very blessed because I was in naturopathic medical school and I was surrounded by healers, and I had people that came into my home and helped my family make food and take care of my kid and would offer their, whatever things that they had. And there were a couple people that came in that really made a huge shift for me. And one of them was this therapist who did subconscious work with me. And that was the first time I'd felt like anyone had therapy that really addressed really where I needed to go and what I needed to work on. And it turns out I had a lot of generational family trauma that I needed to process, and that was processing through my body. I'm a very sensitive person, and that was coming through my body. And those were things that were in the unconscious mind, not the conscious mind. And so that was a piece of my healing at that point. I was able to break through in this very key moment where she made me come into her office. She was coming to my home and working with me as I was lying in bed. Like, that's how sick I was. I couldn't go to the doctor. They had to come to me. And and she said, I can't get to this one thing. You need to come in. And I went in with her, and my mom came 2 days before, and I sat in the bathtub and she washed my hair, for me. And I was completely exhausted. I mean, some of you know what that's like. It's like just washing your body is too much, right?
Too hard. It's so many people listening have been there.
Yeah. Right. And so I went into the session. That was really a breakthrough session in my subconscious mind. And it broke me through to a point where I was then able to start working. I think it broke through on that energetic and some of the emotional pieces. And I was then able to work on my physical body. So I say I moved from bed to the couch. That's when I moved from upstairs in the bed to I can now be on the couch. And I was much more present to those people around me, but I was still very tired. I took a whole year out of school, and it really took me a couple years to heal from that crash. When I got back into medical school, I was throwing everything I knew what to do at the time at it. This is in the 90s. So I was doing a lot of adrenal stuff. I was doing some different types of things. I really finally to me, it was like a puzzle, and I was figuring out the different pieces.
Yeah.
The final piece for me that time was actually getting my 20 dental amalgams out and doing a
Okay.
mercury detox. And that was
Yeah.
huge. And after I came through that couple month process, I was like, whoa, like I'm never going back. That's incredible. Like I feel so good. I
Yeah.
had 150% energy, no crashes, was
Hmm.
able to have another kid, like
Oh,
opened
wow.
up multiple clinics. I was doing all this work
Wow.
and never thought I would crash again. And then I did. I
Mm.
had a whole series of things. And that's when I learned a couple of really key things. And
Yeah.
this time I was 17 years into practice and I understood a lot more about medicine. And the things
Mhm.
that I did before weren't helping this time around, which is when I began
Mhm.
to understand there's so much more to it.
Right.
Before that, people would come in with chronic fatigue to see me, and I knew there was a possibility of them healing because I had, and some of them I was able to help, but some of them I couldn't, and I didn't
Right.
understand why it works sometimes and not others. I feel like I
Mhm.
was sort of still throwing things at the wall and hoping something would stick.
Mhm.
And it was not until I crashed the second time that I really came to understand the 5 root causes and the 4 health foundations you need to have dialed in and to look at to really get to that substantial health vitality that we all want.
Yeah.
And I got
Mhm.
there through just, like you said in my bio, I mean, I really didn't have a choice. The first
Yeah.
time I crashed, I wasn't earning money. I could lie in bed. The second time I crashed, I had a clinic with a overhead. I had employees. My family was financially dependent on me. I literally was lying in bed going, I could feel that looming hole right there. Like I knew the potential to go down was very fast. It was
Mm.
crazy to me how quickly the relapse happened.
Right.
And but it was literally bankruptcy. I mean, I'd be awake at 2 o'clock in the morning going, I have to figure this out, or I'm literally taking my family down with me and everything we own. And so
Mm.
I was in severe pain. I had frozen shoulder and I was in severe pain and I couldn't sleep. So I just get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and started researching. It was me and
Mm.
PubMed at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Oh my gosh.
and
Wow.
just following trails. At that
Yeah.
time, everybody was looking for the one thing, what's the one root cause? And I
Mhm.
knew that wasn't right, but I kept going
Mhm.
down these trails, trialing and erring on my own body.
Mhm.
And there was this thing where that has happened to me since I was a first practicing medicine, where I felt like it was sort of the universe supporting me in my clinic schedule. If I
Mhm.
was really
Mhm.
tired, not taking care of myself, or my kid needed me or something, my patients would just go away. My
Mhm.
schedule would clear.
Yeah.
And I was sure that that's what was going to happen during this. I'm like, I know I need to work, but I don't even know if anybody's going to come see me. Like energetically, like I
Mhm.
didn't have a lot to offer.
Mhm.
It was really interesting because the opposite happened. I
Mhm.
went out to try to clear a date to have a vacation, and my receptionist said, "You're booked out for like 3.5 months." I'm
Oh
like,
my
"What?"
gosh.
Like, and all these people with chronic fatigue started to just come into my clinic with just
Yeah.
no advertising, nothing. It was just they were all
Wow.
there. And it
Energetic.
was interesting because I was able to start applying all these things that I had been researching, studying on myself
Yeah.
to these different people. And I began to get really clear about how, what does it seem like if they have one root cause versus another or multiple ones?
Mhm.
How do you decide which one to go after first? That's going to be the root that's really going to have the most impact on people. What do you do when people have that contrary reaction to treatments? What do you do when they don't respond? We all have come in with our own sensitivities and body histories, and I believe
Mhm.
it takes an individual approach to get fully get out of the chronic fatigue, ME, long COVID patterns.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so I was still healing myself while I was working with these people, and I finally was able to break through my own glass ceiling with clearing out my 5th root cause,
Mhm.
and
Mm.
really again experienced full abundant energy with none of the crashes, which was amazing. And then I was doing really great, and then I actually got long COVID.
Mm.
And
Oh, no.
and and it was
Gosh.
interesting because looking back now, I can see exactly what I did, which would have been better for me to do to avoid getting long COVID. And I think
Mhm.
it just really, and I'll share this with you later on when we're talking if we have time, because I think it's important for people to understand that there's a place where there are certain health foundations that if we keep attending to them, if we keep
Mhm.
kind of reviewing where we are with these with these 4 health foundations, we can really keep ourselves at a healthier level.
Yeah.
I knew there was a health foundation I needed to address, which was my gut. I knew some things had happened to it recently,
Mhm.
and I was under immense amount of stress during the pandemic, as everyone was. Like, somebody had something. We all had kind of different things. I had an incredible stressful thing happening with me, and it was
Mm.
financial, and it was very stressful,
Mhm.
and it just was wreaking havoc with my I was allowing it to wreak havoc with
Mhm.
my nervous system.
Mhm.
And
I get that. I get
those
that.
things were the setup, and I actually
Yeah.
was sick with an acute gastrointestinal illness from travel while I was
Mhm.
exposed to COVID, so my gut
Oh my
microbiota
gosh.
was just wiped out. I was literally in bed with a fever and diarrhea when I was exposed to COVID in a hotel room
Oh no.
in the Dominican
Oh boy.
Republic, and I was out there teaching this mastermind for all these amazing female founders, all these amazing businesswomen, and I
Yeah.
stayed an extra couple days to relax, and I ended up getting sick.
Good. I'm glad you stayed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
so it was really interesting to then go through the long COVID experience, because I was
Yeah.
pretty sure theoretically that what I was doing would help people with long COVID. It was very
Absolutely.
interesting to
Yeah.
experience it, and I really came in with the attitude of, "This is challenging, and I know that this will serve." Like, this, I'm
Mhm.
trusting that my work here is gonna serve those, and I really hope those of you who are listening who may have long COVID or chronic fatigue, ME, you really
Yeah.
hear in both of our stories that there is a possibility of healing. Our bodies know how to heal, they want to heal. It's if we can give them the right information at the right time that
Yeah.
we can really come back into a state of balance. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I so appreciate everything. I so appreciate everything you said. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's going to help so many people. And everybody, thank you so much for listening. Welcome to everybody. And I think the time that we have, I will try to answer some of the comments online afterwards, everybody on chronic fatigue support. But while Dr. Jenny is here, Dr. Jenny, if you feel like you have, if we feel like we have the time, could we first maybe dive into, because when I heard you say this on another seminar, or it was an online, I think it was the healthy aging.
Was it a summit, one of the summits of
Yeah, it was
Dr.
a summit. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is what caught my attention.
Mhm.
You talked about the 5 causes that you had figured out for chronic fatigue, and they can be
Mhm.
different, right? So
Mhm.
I would love, if possible, to address those. And then you talk about like kind of the 4 foundations.
Mhm.
Do you feel like we have time? Because yes, I'm sure we both noticed this, that people have different reasons that they develop chronic fatigue or
Mhm.
CFS. And
Mhm.
what you said really resonated with my research too, and my experience. And and also you're a practitioner, and I don't know if are you still taking patients, or are you doing more education at this point?
I do both. So I'm bringing
Okay.
people in who are really ready are really ready for that shift,
Yeah.
and I work with people in intensive one-on-one sessions where they come in and they work with me for 6 months.
Okay.
And I find that in 6 months, we can really get somewhere with most people.
Yeah.
And it, depends. We can talk more about what are realistic expectations if you like. I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really fair question to ask.
Yeah. Okay.
And I also have a group program.
Okay.
And so those of you who are listening now, I've started a 6-month group program. It's great.
Okay.
And you get to meet with either me or one of my amazing nutritionists or somatic coaches, and we are really working on stuff. And you get to work through, I have a 7-week online program, so you get to work through that and then come in for Q&A and hot seats with me. It's fun. It's a great place to be. So those of you who are interested, you can definitely find me on my website, reach out, apply to work with me. I only take on people who I feel like I can help and who I feel are ready to do the work. So that's just kind of my thing because
Mhm. I understand. Yeah.
yeah,
And what
yeah,
is your
yeah,
website, Dr. Jenny? Just
yeah.
I know I've been on your website, but I don't think I have it listed. So if you don't mind sharing that, maybe I'll type it into the comments, and then yeah, go ahead. And then yeah,
It's
everybody, I'll answer your comments later. Sorry,
it's
everybody. Go ahead.
drjennytufenkian.com.
Dr.
Jenny, J-E,
Jenny, and then oh, I said your
J-E-N-N.
name wrong. Sorry.
That's okay. Tufenkian, T-U,
Tufane Kian.
.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
DRJENNYTUFENKIAN.com. Okay. I'm going to put that in the chat, everybody. Okay. And then, yeah, and everyone, thank you so much for your comments. Hi, Catherine. I know there's so many people listening, but while we have the time, Dr. Jenny, I know we have limited time. We have an hour together, so now we have 40 minutes. Let's dive into the 5 root causes that you figured out. I think they're so relevant. And then we'll do the kind of the 4 foundational.
Yeah, that sounds great. And if there's time, I'm happy to take questions. So if you feel like there's some questions that are helpful, that would serve those people who are listening, I'm very happy to answer those if there's time in the end. And don't hesitate to interrupt me if I'm talking and you want clarification or have further questions. So
that sounds good. And
jump in. Or if somebody pops up a clarifying question in the chat, you're welcome to punt that to me.
Okay, thank you. I actually see 2, let me see. I see 2 questions, right, or 2 comments right now. Actually 3. Let's see. 2. Do you feel like we have time to, should we do the
let's do the root causes and foundations first.
We're gonna do the 5 root causes and the 4 foundations first, and if we have time, well, thank you so much for your comments. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Jenny.
So there are 4 health foundations and 5 root causes, and let me I'm just looking to see if it's easy to bring up. I could bring up a little keynote thing if it's easy, if people want visuals, but it's okay. I'll just talk through it. So I'm actually going to go through the health foundations first. And the reason I'm going to do this is because I want people to understand how important these are. And I think that they're easy to get lost and not think they're important because they feel too easy or too basic. I was just at a cutting edge health conference in Seattle this fall. And when they're looking at, and we did a huge breakdown of that, is serotonin really the root cause of long COVID, and what's on the other side of that with this other pathway called the chironetic pathway. And we kind of did a deep dive into all that. And there's a whole lot of other things that we discussed in terms of neuroinflammation and all these fascinating pieces that I love to geek out on.
Yeah.
And the take home was likely the most powerful medicine we have, the most powerful is lifestyle, is actually how it is that what you are choosing to put into your body every day, what you're choosing to do with your body, how you're choosing to use the power of your mind, which is the strongest pharmacy we have in the world, which is literally our own brain. What are we doing with those things that we have power of to impact our own health? So I never want you to underestimate the value of what it is that you're choosing to do for your own healthcare every day. And if you go off the rails, it's okay. Come back on. You guys know what to do. So remembering to really take care of yourself. And these health foundations are literally the foundations. I get fascinated by huge buildings, and I think it's amazing that we can create these huge, beautiful buildings in New York City. And I was in there looking at the buildings and watching from, my uncle has this apartment on the 48th floor in Manhattan. So you get to see all this construction all around you. And I was looking down at this new building they were building, and they dug and dug and dug and dug and dug and dug and dug deep, big, huge foundation, huge foundation, strong, stable, because they wanted to build this big, huge, tall, gorgeous building that could withstand and have resilience. And that's what you need for your body. So the more you invest in that foundation, the stronger, more resilient you're going to be able to handle for the earthquakes and the wind, cold temperatures and the hot temperatures and all the stuff that happens in our life.
Makes sense.
Compared to when they remove a Dairy Queen or a 7-Eleven, I'm always surprised there's nothing underneath. They're just like freaking gravel pads. Like there's nothing there. And you can imagine that a cyclone came in, they'd just be gone. It's like, what do you want for your body? Like, do you want that Dairy Queen foundation? Do you want that skyscraper foundation?
That's the best metaphor. I love that. That's so funny.
So these health foundations, number one is digestion and detoxification. So is your gut working? Is your liver functioning? Your gallbladder? Are they optimized? And this is where I messed up before long COVID. It was on my
Mhm.
list. I didn't want to take the week off to take care of myself. Like I knew what to do, and I kept going, no,
Mhm.
I got to keep working, like totally
It's
doing my
hard.
own,
Yeah.
got stuck in my own loop. The other one is rhythm and sleep. Getting into
Mhm.
a regular circadian rhythm, honoring that rhythm,
Mhm.
putting yourself to bed at the right time, getting up at the right time in the morning, just getting into going with nature really helps your body. This
Yeah.
helps that whole hypothalamic pituitary axis, that whole adrenal function piece
Mhm.
massively. The
Mhm.
other one is working with movement and breath. We need to breathe properly. A lot of us who are in a chronic fatigue pattern, a lot of us who are in a chronic stress pattern, a lot of us learn this like I did from my mama to breath hold.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there's a stress pattern of breath holding, and there's also something that physiologically can happen with people with chronic fatigue, ME, long COVID, where you have what they call air hunger, where it's
Mm.
hard to get that full breath. You
Mm.
keep trying to get that full breath and you can't. So
Interesting.
really working on your breath helps get your body back into that sympathetic balance where your nervous system is in a balanced state. It's
Okay.
amazing how easy just breathing can really help.
Mhm.
And movement can really help that. And I know that there are a lot of people with severe chronic fatigue, like I was in bed, where we know that we can just do the most basic movements. We can do the dishes and it crashes us out. It's too
Right.
much.
Yeah.
Or you used to run 5 miles and now 2 blocks, you're back on the couch. So
Mhm.
I'm not I we know the PACE trials were wrong, that we just don't force people with
Mhm.
chronic fatigue and ME out there to just exercise. That said, movement is really important and critical for the body coming back into balance, and actually created this 4-step plan for people, even if you're stuck in bed like I was, where you can start working on quote unquote movement through
Awesome.
using the power of your mind, because
Mhm.
and also using your breath. So
Nice.
I just want to plant
Perfect.
that seed of
Yeah.
like, don't say, no, I can't move. Don't give me that pace trial crap.
Yeah. It's
The
I
door needs
know.
to be open, right? Yeah.
It's a that's a hard it's I mean I believe everyone listening we can Dr. Jenny and I can definitely relate. It's but also it is yeah I but movement it's also good for your circulation and
Right.
there's so many reasons. Yeah,
Lymphatic
lymphatic, yeah,
detoxification, like you
it's
need your
yeah.
lymph moving to detoxify so that your immune
Mhm.
system and your detoxification pathways are open. There's so many reasons movement is great.
Mhm.
And there is something that every one of us can do no matter where you are. Again, even if you're stuck in bed like I was with IVs in your arm, because that's what was going on with
Mhm.
me.
Mm.
There's still things that you can do in that state to help your body get ready for the next phase when you're ready for it. And
Right.
it's priming the brain for this growth of health.
Mhm. Mm.
Um, the fourth one is mindset and spirit, which I know you're going to be a fan of just from the little bit I know about you. And that's really focusing on that emotional and energetic piece of us. And where is your mindset? It's very easy for the brain to go into a very negative pattern with these, because of the fact that you don't feel good, you are inflamed, you do have high levels interleukin 6 most likely. That does lead to feeling anxious. You are in hypervigilance because the world does feel dangerous to you. And so these are physiological things that are going on that can make you feel more afraid, be more stressed out, be depressed, be anxious. And yet we still have the power of this beautiful mind that we have, where we can use a number of different techniques to bring ourselves back into feeling okay about where we are.
Mm.
And I'd say that was the
Mhm.
big switch for me when I
Mm.
had that breakthrough hypnosis sessions, like 2.5 hours with two different therapists working on me. I was a
Mm.
hard nut to crack. And, like, literally broke through, but that was the switch for me, was I was able to move into this other place where then I could be on the couch and really start healing.
Mhm. Wow.
I have to say that there are these 4 health foundations,
Mm.
and post-pandemic, I actually added in a 5th,
Okay.
which is connection. And the
Yes.
connection permeates every single one of these. We
Mm-hmm.
all felt the pain of isolation in one way or another. And when
Yeah.
I say connection, I mean connection to yourself,
Yeah.
connection to your higher self, whatever that means to you, and connection to others in your community. We are a web of interconnected beings,
Yes.
and you are not as isolated as you may fear you feel right now at times with how your body is feeling right now. We
Mm.
truly are connected, and the more that we can experience that connection in ourselves and in our community, it really does empower us. We are social beings. So,
Absolutely. And even doing this, like, if someone is, sitting in bed watching this, at least there's some type of connection at seeing our faces. And one of my favorite quotes is connection is the currency of well-being.
yeah,
Um,
beautiful.
isn't
I
that
love
great?
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's by John Travis. When I was studying
Mm,
wellness coaching, and I was like, it's stuck with me all these years. Connection is
yeah.
the currency of well-being, and
Yeah.
social well-being. We tend to miss that in all of the most wellness protocols. Miss that piece, and yeah,
Yes.
and I know, and so many people in our communities were already isolated before COVID, so it
Right.
wasn't all that much different. But
Totally.
it was kind of depressing to be like, oh, well, the rest of you get to go back to what you were, and for us, we're still here, you were here and we're still here.
That's so funny. I have this one patient that comes to mind because she and I had that exact conversation. She's like, well, this is how I've been living now. Everybody else can
We're
see
pretty
how
used to
it
it.
feels.
Thank you. Anyway.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
totally get that. And then, so those are the health foundations. And
So
the
great.
other thing I want to say about the health foundations that I love is that these are the exact things. These will help any treatment you do work better for your body.
Mhm.
Or if you just do these treatments, your body is going to start responding, start going back to its normal regulated self.
Mm.
And as you get better, as you come out, these will allow you to not to experience less crashing, and they also allow you to become like a high performer. Literally, these are the health
Mm.
foundations that elite athletes and people who are on the stage have coaches and teams helping them with, right?
Mhm.
It's
Right.
like, what are your biometrics? How much sleep do you need? Did you get enough? What's
Mm.
happening with your HRV rates? What's happening? What are your nutrition needs? So
Mhm.
I just really want to like
Oh, absolutely. It applies across the board. And I,
Mhm,
I remember interviewing a she was a journalist who had chronic illness. And
mhm.
she figured out in her research that it's not just one thing that usually helps you get the upper edge. It's usually a combination of things.
Totally.
And you can't ignore the basics. And I have to keep reminding myself to manage my stress and to say no to things that are going to
Right.
stress out my body. I mean, there's a fine line, right? But
Yeah.
and then nutrition. Nutrition, and if I'm not sleeping well, what can I do?
Right.
What can let's revisit and check back in. And I like to use a lot of mindfulness. And anyway, I just wanted to, yeah, it's usually not just one thing that helps you find that tipping point,
Yeah.
right? Because that's really what you're trying to do to help your nervous system, your immune system. And anyway,
Right.
so Dr. Jenny, so thank you. Those are really, I
Yeah.
love
And
those foundations.
and for those of you who may be feeling like, oh man, that's a long list. How am I supposed to start? And I'm already tired. What am I supposed to do? My advice and how I counsel people is to choose one to start with. Like which
Mhm,
one, and you can either choose the one that you know is the most dysregulated and
mhm,
will help you the most, or you can choose the one, frankly, that's easier because
mhm.
sometimes that is better. Like
Yeah.
sometimes if you like, which wall are you going to shore up first? Are you going to do the one that's
Mhm,
crumbled completely? Or are you
mhm.
going to shore up the one that, well, it just takes a little bit of effort and then I know I'll start feeling better.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah. So the 5 root causes. So
Yeah.
the 5 root causes, one of them is what I call the gateway root cause,
Mm,
which is the hormone triangle. So
mm,
these are your adrenal glands, your thyroid gland, and your ovaries or testes if you male, genetically male. So this is what I call the gateway. This is often really impacted by stress levels. And so this is kind of the one where you may feel people with HPA access. We call it adrenal fatigue because it sounds easier. That's not the official
mm.
word, as you know, Eddie. We call it,
That's
but it's a
okay.
lot easier to say. So that's the root cause. that's one of the root causes that I see is really common, or people having thyroid disorders,
Mm.
that hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, that is, especially if it's autoimmune based, that can become a really easy gateway into a process where the body gets more and more dysregulated, and can really start to tip your body into the state of chronic fatigue. The second one is looking at mitochondrial dysfunction. And whether your mitochondria are these little tiny organelles, these little tiny energy centers in the body, and they can burn clean or burn dirty. And many of us are burning dirty because they are so susceptible to toxicity levels and to other things that can get in there, and they're very, very vulnerable. When I was doing the second time I crashed and I was experimenting with some mitochondrial treatments, I had an incredible breakthrough with treating my mitochondria, and it was really interesting. And it helped me understand some other pieces and leads into the third root cause. What I found in clinic, so I did this high dose of D-ribose, which is the sugar that's used for mitochondria for energy, and I did a very high dose. And my story with that is that I was, there was a conference I wanted to go to, but I knew even with my strategies, I didn't have the energy to go to this medical conference that was in my city, was in Portland. And my strategies would have been my nap kit in the car, where I could go take a nap in the car during lunchtime, or I lie down in the back of the room with a pillow and something over my eyes, so I'm just listening. I knew I still didn't have the energy for that. So I was really bummed, because it was somebody I'd wanted to hear for a long time. And then my D-ribose came, and I experimented with it for that week. And that same weekend of the conference, my cousins were in town, and they really wanted to go hiking. And I was experimenting with this D-ribose, and by the time they showed up, I was feeling so much better. I actually went with them, and I was just going to go up the mountain, and I was going to hang out and just draw and hang out in the car while they hiked. By the time we got up there, I'm like, I kind of feel like I could hike. And so I went hiking for like 3 or 4 hours, and then I came back and was like, I'm going to totally crash. We got stuck in traffic and it was late. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be in bed for like a week. I'm totally paying for this. I took extra D-ribose and I didn't crash. And it was fine. Wow. I was like, whoa. And then I was like, that was like my new drug. Like I had to have it. But what I found was about 4 out of 10 patients, they would have the same experience and the others didn't. And the reason why is they had the next root cause, which is high toxic load. If you have too much toxicity, if you have too many heavy metals, if you have too many pesticides, glyphosate, things like that are blocking your mitochondria from getting the energy, being able to be energy producers that they are, then you're not going to be able to take in the D-ribose to actually have that mitochondria work. It doesn't function. So I use the D-ribose as a trial to see if we can get some of these mitochondrial to bump up, because it feels great if you can. You don't need it forever. You just need it for a while. And if it doesn't work, it's diagnostic to me in terms of the next step is going to be, let's look at some heavy metals. Let's look at some toxicity. Let's see what else is going on. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So the next root cause is toxicity. And honestly, we all, because we are building these big buildings and digging up the earth and putting metals in the air and all of that, we all have high levels of toxic exposure, plastics, all that kind of stuff. It's hard on our bodies. So there's a level of detoxification that needs to happen all the time. And then the next root cause is looking at infection levels, chronic infections. And those chronic infections can be viruses that have reactivated. We have more viruses we have a lot of viruses out there that we don't even have names for, and yet they're in our bodies. We have fragments of viruses inside our cells, and when people get dysregulated, it's very easy for those viruses to start taking over, and they will literally suck the energy right out of your mitochondria. They will alter your immune system so that they're not seen. They're like, I'm not here. They really they're amazing. They're very good at surviving. They've got it down. So I think that this is frequently one of the lowest hanging fruits. I had a patient come to me who is a physical trainer, and she'd been to many, 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 many doctors and unable to get her the treatment that she needed. And it turns out that she just needed some really good antiviral for her reactivated Epstein-Barr virus. And
Okay.
within a couple weeks, she was like feeling amazing. So sometimes for some people, this is like a real low hanging piece of fruit if they've already tried lots of other things and this hasn't been addressed. And it could be other infections too. It could be, it could be a fungal or bacterial or viral. There's lots of different places you can get infections. And then the fifth root cause is looking at the emotional brain, that limbic brain. Limbic brain dysfunctional trauma piece is gigantic. And I think a lot of people will have 1, 2, 3, or all 5 of these.
Yeah.
Those of you who feel like you are really stuck and have been dealing with this for a long time and just keep banging your head against the proverbial wall, it may be that you have all 5 because they start really feeding each other. When you have toxicity levels, when you look at the health foundations, you have gut dysbiosis going on, you've got infections. We know the gut is huge in terms of triggering all kinds of mood disorders and fatigue and trauma responses to the brain. If your gut is inflamed, you're eating foods that you're sensitive to, then it sends a signal through the vagus nerve up into that limbic brain and tells that limbic brain, we're not very safe. It's not really okay down here. And then the limbic brain is trying to help you, but it kind of goes into this, starts sending out this shutdown hibernation type, signal down. And then the mitochondria go like, oh, we're in hibernation shutdown mode. We need to stay safe. And they start slowing down how they function. And it becomes a vicious cycle. And then how that makes you feel, it's like your brain is literally telling you it's really dangerous out there. Like it is so dangerous out there. You just need to hide under this rock. Yeah. And so every signal in your body is driving you to experience more pain, more fatigue, just so you stay safe. So that's huge.
Absolutely. And I remember you saying in that conference, you were talking about, saying stop, right, to your subconscious mind. Yeah. And I remember hearing about that before, but the way you described it made a lot of sense. And so, I think for a lot of us, it is a lot of it's probably all 5 or a very like 3 to 4 of them. And that was really helpful to hear again, to kind of tell your subconscious brain and the rest of your body, that you are safe by saying stop to kind of those feelings of not feeling safe. Right. But also I have a couple questions for you before we dive into some of these other questions. If you're, let's say your body is, you're sensitive to something, and then that's sending off a signal of not feeling safe. Can you, if it's like a physical reaction, can you also, let's say from something physical that you've consumed or you're exposed to, does it also work to kind of work on your subconscious mind? It's all kind of connected that way? So I'm not asking that question very well, but I think I
understand. Let's throw in some examples and see if it makes more, if it lands.
Yeah.
So let's do 2 different examples. Let's talk about food and let's talk about environmental things. Yeah. So somebody with multiple chemical sensitivity who's sensitive to, walks by and somebody's got the Tide going, or the things you put in your dryer, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Whether it's like an external toxin that you cannot control and you have a physical response,
right?
Can you tell your subconscious mind to stop that reaction?
Yeah, I had a huge, amazing experience with this because I have the ability to become chemically sensitive, and I have the ability not to be. And my experience of this was felt like I was a canary in the coal mine for decades. I didn't understand why people were using all this toxic stuff in the world, and how they could think it smelled good and why they were dousing their children in this stuff.
Hey,
you walk into an Airbnb and you're like removing all of those little air freshener things off the plugs. What I found really fascinating is when I healed my limbic brain, my sense of smell shifted. And this is actually becomes now a way for me to assess how my limbic brain is doing. If I walk into the bathroom actually what happened, which was funny, I walked into the bathroom and I was washing my hands, and I was like, oh, that kind of flowery smell reminds me of the perfume my grandma bought me when I was 8 years old. Oh, that's so sweet. And I'm like, and it's like, whoa, like that didn't smell like toxic chemicals that were trying to kill me. Like it
Yeah, I know
really
what
is
you mean.
true.
Yeah.
Like the limbic brain, when the limbic brain is on fire, it literally alters your sense of smell. So you're hypersensitive to
I
those things
know.
around you, and
Mhm.
it will make things smell poisonous and acrid to you that does not smell that way to somebody else's whose brain is more balanced. And
Mhm.
as you heal your brain, it can. So yes,
Okay.
you can say stop to that, and I have done
Mhm.
that. And
Okay.
there are some other layers of processing to do below that for some
Mhm.
people. For
Okay.
some people, just knowing they can say stop, that's all you need. Like some of you, that's like you can just go, oh wow, I didn't realize that. I'm just going to try that, and that's great. There are some really specific steps to healing, to shifting the way that the neurological pathways in your brain, so that
Mhm.
it's easier to go down that path of being of feeling safe and being
Feeling
healed.
safe. Okay.
Um, I think that it is, but just knowing that that chemical sensitivity is your brain being in an altered state is, I think, really powerful for a lot of us, because
Mhm.
that alone gets you out of that victim state of feeling like the world is attacking you and all these
Mhm.
people don't understand. Doesn't mean that stuff is good for us. It's not. It's still not
Right.
good for us.
Oh yeah, no, it's yeah, and it's an ongoing thing for me. And my other question I'm going to hold on to see if first we can let's answer some of these
Yeah.
what
And
other
let me just quickly answer the food one, if you're okay with that.
absolutely. Oh
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
So the food piece can be lots of different reasons why your body is sensitive to foods. And having been a doctor for so many years in clinic as a primary care doctor, and I did a lot of food sensitivity work with people where I did this test on them to assess which foods they were sensitive to. What I have found is that there can be a lot of power of removing foods that are irritating your body, so that your body doesn't have to deal with that, and it can then use its vital energy. You can kind of have your base diet that's easier for your body while you're doing some of the deeper healing work,
Mhm.
because it can just be easier for your system to do that. And then as your body gets healthier, you can start bringing in more of those foods and see how they make you feel. If they make you feel neutral or great, then good. But if they make you not feel great, then you can still choose to not eat those, and you can take that power back in
Mhm.
terms of choosing what comes into your body. Now, that said, I think some people who have a lot of severe stress and are really in limbic dysfunction, you can get really, your brain can start getting so that, again, even the foods start feeling dangerous, and
Yeah.
that can limit your pile. So then you're down to 3 foods. And at that point, it might be more powerful for you to work with your brain and not worry so much about the foods.
Great point.
And
Those are yeah,
yeah.
I really appreciate that. I know there's so many different topics and tactics, and these are huge topics, I know. And that's why I so resonated with, your message when I first heard you speak. And I'm so grateful that you're here, Dr. Jenny, because
Yeah.
there's so many people struggling with this, and chronic fatigue, whether it's due to CFS or another chronic condition or burnout, it's on the rise.
Oh,
And
it's crazy. Yeah.
and then we have long COVID. So
Yeah.
it just feels like it's never ending. Not that I want to put that in our brains, but so many people need help.
Well, I think that in terms of the never ending, I think that the way I would reframe that is that I think a lot of people are walking around with long COVID, ME, chronic fatigue, and don't know it, or are
Mm-hmm.
pushing that away. I know I pushed the diagnosis away. I didn't want to be identified in that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And yet there's something about when you I think there's something good about admitting where you're at, and also knowing that this is just where your body is right now, and always holding that vision for where you want your body to go to, and how you want and I say body, but I really mean your being, like that physical,
Mhm.
emotional, and energetic. Where are you really going to? So you're listening to where you are now and addressing it, and you're also planning ahead for that new future, for that new future now of you being in this healthier state. I think it's really important to be in both, and to not over identify with
Mhm.
a diagnosis. Don't let the diagnosis be your destiny.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great phrase. And yeah, and also I know what really helped me and still helps me is having the intention to feel better. And then you can take action based on that. And there again, there's so many things we could dive deeper into here,
I
but
know.
let me there are two comments in here, and then if
Mhm.
we can, we'll get to my other questions, but we have about 12 minutes. Okay, so first, Dee. Hi, Dee. Thank you so much for being here. And Meredith and Catherine. First, let me just see Bridget. And I think there was somebody else here, Lauren. Okay, so Dee has a comment. Let me see if you have any comments related to this. I had fibromyalgia for 30 years, ME
Mhm.
for 18 years. I am housebound, living on my own. She has
Mhm.
bad chronic fatigue. He or she has bad chronic fatigue. House is a mess. I'm a mess. Only get a proper normal energy maybe one day in every 6 weeks,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then I clean up.
Mhm.
We all know what that's like. You do
You do.
everything every day.
I'll get everything done today.
It drives me nuts.
Crash again.
And then that's probably part of the reason why you crash again, because you're like, woo, let me get everything done. And then here she also says, or they say, but my appetite is also not good. So if does anything stand out to you there that you want to comment on? Or having fibromyalgia for 30 years, it sounds like they've been really suffering for a long time. They're housebound.
Mhm.
It's, only having energy like once a day for like every 6 weeks. And
Yeah, I say thank you so much for being here. And just you being here, I know that you're still seeking answers and you haven't given up, which is huge. And I always say that. It's like, don't, never give up, because there's always a place for us to heal. And it's that knocking on the doors until you get the answers that resonate with you. You have a lot going on. And so I would say, start, start somewhere. Start somewhere. It's like any one of these avenues in would probably be beneficial for you. I will say that anyone with fibromyalgia and pain response, there's usually a couple things going on there. And one of them is commonly that limbic stress response, because that's the body putting up a higher pain, like lowering your pain threshold. You experience more pain
okay.
so that you can stay safe. It's really your body trying to get you to stay safe. So there's some need to, where there's some part of you that doesn't feel safe. A lot of us have trauma from childhood, generational trauma. I had both. It's like, and it just sets us up for being in that state. So that may be a powerful place to look at. I mean, obviously I can't diagnose or treat you from here at this, but I would say there's some other pieces. There may be something really basic you could do with some of the lifestyle, the health foundations that would give you a really big shift. And I would look through that list and think about, is there one of them that if I just really focused on my sleep, or really focused on my digestion detoxification, if that would be a big mover. So I would look at those.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people with fibromyalgia have a lot of toxicity in their cells and often have chronic viruses.
I so appreciate you saying all that. And I mean, just for me, kind of energetically, kind of the safety piece that
Mhm.
I think is I don't know if that's resonating with you, Dee, but
It's
I'm
huge.
that.
I'd say
Yeah,
it's number 1. Like, that would be number
yeah,
1 to work there, whether it's yeah.
yeah. I
Mhm,
think that for some reason that's resonating with me for D.
mhm,
Okay, thank you. So thank you so much. Okay, so then Catherine, hi Catherine. So Catherine says, I need this so much. Going to give
mhm,
it some time later when I can. Diagnosed with Parkinson's,
mhm,
RA,
mhm.
scoliosis, and high anxiety. On
Yeah,
meds,
mhm,
nervous and afraid of the future all the time. I don't know
yep.
if you have any
Yes, I do.
Catherine.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because this is kind of one of the things that I'm gonna be working on next, which is really sharing a lot about this brain connection, about what's happening in the brain. And a
Mhm.
lot of us who have brain fog, there's a
Mm,
depression, anxiety, brain fog, and then other brain degenerative kinds of conditions, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, different types of dementias. It's all the same. It's the same thing is happening with every single one of those. And it's a path. And I
mhm.
think some of us have a tendency towards that more than the others. So the connection is usually leaky gut. If you have a leaky gut, you have a leaky brain. If you have a leaky brain, you have brain inflammation, when the brain is in an inflamed state, it's different than when you twist your ankle. When you twist your ankle, there's a natural 72-hour cycle where the body just naturally has a really high inflammatory level, and then it kind of calms down, and then it will eventually heal unless you re-injure it. The brain, when your brain is inflamed, it's because you've got this leaky membrane from your brain. Molecules of stuff that are not supposed to get into your brain do. Heavy metals, viruses, toxic stuff from our planet, whatever gets into the brain. Your immune system does what it's supposed to do. It says, this is an alien, get this foreigner out of here. We're going to mount a response. And it starts getting more and more cytokines, things, hey, come help me out. There's a fire, there's a fire, there's a fire, there's a fire.
Yeah.
The problem is that when your brain is functioning that way, it really, it doesn't stop naturally. It doesn't have the same off switch that it does for your swollen ankle. So it keeps going on unless you bring something in to stop it. So there are a lot of strategies that we can use to actually get that brain inflammation to come down. So there's a really great book called The End of Alzheimer's by Dr. Dale Bredesen. I actually got to have a conversation with him one-on-one at that conference I was talking about in October, and it was really interesting. And one of his things we in the naturopathic world love him, so I got to let him know how much all of the naturopaths love on him, because he proved how important lifestyle is. But the truth is that he says that dementias are they're optional. Dementias are optional.
Interesting.
My dad died of a degenerative brain condition. So this really means a lot to me to have watched both my grandpa and my dad and my grandma die of brain diseases. And then me having the chronic fatigue, I'm like going, oh, this is interesting. Here, what's happening here? What is that factor X that we have that can lead us to a higher increase, and what can we do about it? And I know from my experience personally and from working with people in clinic that there are specific strategies we can do to reduce that brain inflammation. So that was a lot for me to share with you.
No, it's fantastic. I love that.
But I just want to tell you, yes, there are things that you can do. And of course you feel severe anxiety because your brain is like going, I am on fire. Of course you feel stressed out. That is a downstream effect of this brain being inflamed. And kind of like I was talking about with that limbic brain and the gut and dysbiosis, it becomes a bit of a cycle until you step in somewhere. You can step in multiple places. You can step in the gut. You can step in and cutting down the brain inflammation to begin to shift it.
That is such great advice. And I think that I love the detailed answers. And I can speak from my own experience too, that I didn't even know that the brain had an immune system until not too long ago. And I've definitely struggled with some of that neuroinflammation, and it is, once it takes, it's more challenging. So
it is. And it's scary itself, right? I remember driving years ago. Mold is another one of the toxic things that a lot of us are exposed to when we talk about the 5 root causes. And I had major mold issues. And I was driving to my husband's office, which is a building that we own that I helped buy and remodel. I knew where it was, and I was driving away from there, and I was completely lost. And I didn't know where I was because I had that much brain fog. And my body completely healed from that. Like my brain came back. 100%.
Oh, good. That's
it's kind of like, it's just important to know that the brain heals. The brain
heals.
Yeah.
And I so appreciate you saying that too, Dr. Jenny. And I feel like I'm very committed to lifestyle, but at the same time, I think that any of us that are, we have experienced chronic conditions, we all have to challenge ourselves to think more positively, and to kind of keep reframing, right? Like, totally. It's always good to keep checking in, right? Because you don't know what's possible. And now, and I know we're getting close to the end of our time here, everyone. Now we're getting a lot of questions and comments, but you have other commitments, I know, right? Or do you want to?
I can go about 5 minutes. I can go about 5 minutes over.
We have about 5 minutes, you guys. Oh, you can go 5 minutes. Okay, so we have a few more minutes. So I don't think. Oh, sure, Catherine. Yeah, Catherine is saying thank you so much. She's also working with a great physical therapist and mental health therapist, and you guys, and I wish we could answer all of your comments and questions now. We have. These are going to be posted. If you ever want to join us, Dr. Jenny, there's that private Facebook group, which a lot of you know about. But there's also the public page where I think these comments will be. So if you ever have time, I don't know, or maybe unfortunately, I wish that we could answer more of your questions here, everybody. I'm gonna do one more. I had a really quick question, and I think a lot of us have this question. If I feel like so many of us, even when we start to feel better, are experiencing a new normal. I'm wondering if that's because of the immune system. Do you know what the cause is for like that potential shift where your body, maybe it's a good thing that your body has a new normal. I'm just wondering if you have any comments about that. And then I would love to do one more of these
Sure, but
that
clarify that.
resonate.
What do you mean by the new normal? Do you mean like
So for me, and
new
I think
normal
a
is
lot
like
of
as people are experiencing less energy, they kind of have to come, so that coming to peace and accepting my new normal,
actually,
or,
it's more like when
or
you're
the other
healing.
way, and when you're
Yeah,
healing.
when
Uh-huh.
you're healing, I
Mhm.
have found that my body has never been the way that it was before. So
Mhm.
it's in some
Mhm.
ways when I'm doing really well, there's more vitality, but there's always
Mm.
this new normal. And a lot of people talk about that. I'm just wondering if, and I don't want to take up people's precious time here, but I sincerely expert. I just wanted to know if you have any
Well,
comments about that.
what I would say to that is that we're always in a process of evolution, and that's
Mhm.
normal part of life, is to always
Right.
be evolving and changing. It's how much are you evolving and changing consciously, and how
Mhm.
much are you directing that evolution and change towards what you want, versus
Mhm.
just being kind of those sticks of flotsam and jetsam on a tide and just kind of going wherever the tide pushes you, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
when you have fatigue, it's easy to just feel overwhelmed and pushed. And so
Mhm.
I think once you start healing, you start having more vitality and energy, and you can start consciously creating where you want to go to. And
Mhm.
I believe we should be recreating ourselves at different times, and that can feel strange. And sometimes people end up
Interesting.
triggering a relapse because they're like, oh, I don't feel like I'm in my box anymore. What should I do? Oh, no, I'm going to
Mhm.
go back in my box where it was safe and comfortable, rather
Mhm.
than being more open to what feels unknown and new
Mhm.
in terms of being in this new way. And I mean, there's a
I
lot more I could
really
say,
appreciate
but
that.
that's I'm just
That's such a great way of thinking of that. Oh my goodness. I so appreciate that. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna choose one more. Somebody's saying, yes, I have air hunger.
yeah.
And okay, I wish we could answer everybody here. Let me see. Okay, here, I'm gonna take this question about a supplement.
Mhm,
This is from Amanda. Can
mhm.
introducing a new supplement affect ME or CFS in a negative way?
Mm. That's really individual, and I would say potentially yes, and in the sense, let me just back up and say, personally, I take and use a lot of different supplements and things, and
Mhm.
even to your question, Edie, about the food sensitivities, I
Mhm.
always or anything, I always think that part of the strategy to get well and to avoid relapse is to have your own personal toolkit. What works
Mhm.
for you? It's like you need
Right.
to find out and experiment, which is what I walk people through in the online self-study program, through the group program, through working with me, is how do you find out what works for you? Because my goal is not only for people to get better, but to be more conscious of what their body's reactions are and what works for you. Whatever helps you get out of your chronic fatigue are also the same things that are going to help you not relapse. Like, one of my
Mm.
root causes is chronic viral infections. That is going to flare during a stress time, a
Mhm.
motor vehicle accident, having a kid, sleep deprivation, final exams, people dying. My dad was dying. I was midwifing his death. It was a beautiful experience.
Mm.
I opened up my supplement cupboard and I'm like, oh, this is stressful. Maybe I should start taking more olive leaf and L-lysine right now so that my EBV doesn't flare
Mhm.
after my dad dies. I
Mm.
did that, and I know I did not relapse then when I could have, because
Mhm.
I took care of myself. I had my toolkit. I knew what worked.
Right.
So for you, some people are very sensitive or have so much toxicity in their cells or their liver or their gallbladder, so that when you take a supplement that helped 10 people online, they're like, I took this amazing
Right,
thing
that's what you
from
were
Amazon
saying.
and I feel
Yeah.
so good. And you go buy it
Yeah.
thinking this is your thing, and then you feel worse, it
Mm-hmm.
may be for a couple different reasons. Some people
If you're
just are
toxic.
sensitive to different things. You
Yeah.
may have an underlying high histamine issue, which a lot of people with chronic fatigue do,
Mm.
or there may be something else in that actual product your body's reacting to,
Mm-hmm. Good
or it
point.
may be that just your body has contrary reactions because it's too full of other stuff, and we
Mm-hmm.
need to come in through the side door. One of my one-on-one patients had been sick for 20 years, seen a lot of great physicians, great protocols, great products, stuff I would use. Nothing helped or made him worse. And so we had to come in a different way. So with
Mm.
him, the movers were us doing subconscious work together and then doing energetic medicine, as in homeopathy and that kind of stuff.
Mm.
His
I
body,
love
his cells
that.
resonated to that. It felt safe doing that.
Yeah.
That was, we needed to get really underneath everything for him. Other people can start using supplements. So
Right.
I don't shy away personally and in my practice from giving people supplements to treat these different conditions. I think they're very helpful. And um and
Absolutely.
you need that toolkit. And again, like if you eat, I mean, I use my toolkit if I go to a restaurant and somebody accidentally puts something in there I shouldn't be eating. I take my digestive enzymes, I take my gut stuff, support stuff, right, with me. It's my toolkit.
Yeah, I know. I so appreciate that answer, and I want to respect your time, Dr.
Yeah,
Jenny,
thank you.
because I know you probably have appointments. And so I'm just gonna I'm gonna thank everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna let Dr. Jenny go because I think she has most of you have appointments coming up, I'm assuming. And then I'm gonna I want to thank you for being here. I'm going to stay on just a few more minutes, just to kind of address maybe a few more of these. So again, do you want to share your website with everybody one more time? And then again, just thank you so much for being here.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here, for all of you who are listening. And thank you, Edie, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be sharing this mission with you, of getting that message out that there are answers, there are ways for you to heal, just getting your body back into that state of balance, and to just stay on the journey. It is a journey. And I truly believe that everything we experience in life, there are things that are good that can come out of it. And I know that for me, that has been true. And I also believe that there's a lot around chronic fatigue that's unnecessary suffering. So getting those answers for yourself so that you can get out of the unnecessary suffering, get into being your most vital self, is key. So yeah, you can reach out to me if you like. My website is drjennytoofankian.com. I have a quiz up there that you can take, where I use the same algorithm or thinking system that I do in clinic to rule in and rule out different root causes of chronic fatigue. And so you can uncover what might likely be your root causes on there. You're certainly welcome, if you're interested in doing some work with me, you're certainly welcome to apply. I'd love to see you in one-on-one or in my group program, or if self-study is your cup of tea, then we've got that too. So would love to hear from you. And thank you again, Edie, for having me, and just the
Yeah,
best to you. And let's stay in touch.
absolutely. I'm in Portland too, so maybe
Oh,
I'll get to meet
no way.
you in
That's great. Oh
person.
my God. I had no
Yeah.
idea. Oh, that's so cool, Edie.
Yeah, so I'd love to meet you. So thank you for being here. I'm going to attempt to take you off the stage just because I know you have places to be. Hang
Okay.
on just a moment here. We'll see if this works. It may not. If it doesn't, I'm just going to end the stream here.
It's okay.
So hang on.
Looks like I can hit leave studio here. So I
Oh,
can
you
see.
can hit it.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Blessings to
you.
everybody. Bye.
Bye. Okay, you guys, I'm going to stay on just for a few more minutes. I want to, nice to see you, Catherine. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And Tammy, Tammy is saying, taking supplements, meditation, starting an elimination diet, all is so overwhelming. What should I focus on first? I have fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, anxiety, depression, and a history of ulcerative colitis. And now, Tammy, I'm not a practitioner. I'm not going to give you, I am an author and a researcher, and I do run chronic fatigue support. I'll give you my take as an author and researcher and expert. How about that? But not as a practitioner, because I'm always very careful, maybe too careful about I don't want to diagnose or treat or prescribe to you. And I wish we could keep Dr. Jenny on here, but she's a very busy lady, and I'm so glad that she was here. Tammy, I completely understand what it's like to feel kind of overwhelmed by not knowing where to start. I would kind of go with your gut feeling on what feels good to you to start with. Like, what does your intuition tell you? What does your body tell you feels good to you, if that makes sense? Um, I would say, since, I mean, I remember Dr. Jenny was mentioning fibromyalgia is very much a limbic system brain that's turned on, or kind of dialed up. And that can also be true with chronic fatigue. So maybe starting with something like really soothing that makes you feel safer. Like, I'm a big fan of comfort. So if I start not feeling well, I'm going to get into bed. I'm going to I just got Netflix. I understand now what they mean by Netflix and chill. I'm going to give my cat a hug, make a cup of tea, make soup, clear my schedule. That's usually where I start. I recommend, again, you want to do something that feels good to you, because a lot of times that is something that is actually helping your body heal as well. So that's what I would recommend from my experience. And Meredith, I'm not sure that I can answer your question, but you're asking, can your protocol, meaning Dr. Jenny's, help with spinal issues and brain inflammation that is caused by it? I recommend, Meredith, that you reach out to Dr. Jenny. So again, let me read her website here. Let's see. It's Dr. Jenny Tufenkayan.com. So that's DR if anyone's just listening. And there will be a replay of this, everybody. It's DrJennyTufenkayan.com. Again, Dr. Jenny Tufenkayan.com. I'm going to read it. I'm going to spell it again in case anyone is just listening. DrJennyTufenkain.com. Meredith, I recommend going on there and reaching out to her. You're welcome. And I hope let's see if there's anybody. Okay, so Lauren, let me address your comment or question on here. Not exactly a question, but I think I have chronic Epstein-Barr. However, my doctors don't believe me. Every time I'm tested, I have reactivated EBV. They say there's no treatment. Lauren, I would reach out to Dr. Jenny, because she mentioned Epstein-Barr and she was talking about how those viruses can be reactivated. And again, in my research, kind of viruses that will kind of stay in the system and kind of be reactivated due to, stress or chronic illness. I think that's very real. I would work with someone like Dr. Jenny, who's an expert and is legally able to help you, because she talked about Epstein-Barr, I believe, and I have a feeling that she most likely could help you. So again, I would reach out to her. And so Amanda, thank you for your question. We did Dr. Jenny address that, and then okay, so Meredith, let me look at your comment here. And I'm not going to be able to say this this term here, but I'll attempt it. My chronic fatigue stems from spinal issues, and I'm going to say this wrong, I guarantee it. Chiari malformation. I probably said that wrong. I have noticed that many of the symptoms and helps you mentioned are true for me. I no longer have chemical sensitivity, for instance. Dr. Lapp diagnosed me with ME. Yeah, so Meredith, yeah, so like a lot of people listening that are also in our community, chronic fatigue support, whether that's on the page or in the group or anywhere for that matter, can have chronic fatigue for different reasons. Chronic fatigue is a symptom and it presents in a lot of different conditions. Let's see. Yeah, you're saying I have noticed that many of the symptoms that Dr. Jenny was talking about, I believe, is that what you're saying, have helped you mention are also true for me. And yeah, that's why I wanted to bring her on, because when I heard her in this other summit, it was a summit on healthy aging. And I was just listening, I was interested in a lot of the topics. And then lo and behold, Dr. Jenny is on there. She was on their interview. She was interviewed for many different topics, but all of a sudden they had this whole segment on chronic fatigue. And I was like, oh, how lucky am I that I get to hear a whole segment on chronic fatigue? And I was just blown away by, she really has, I believe, based on my research and experience, figured out, I believe, it's more than one root cause, right? So, and again, if you have chronic fatigue from a completely other condition, then something else might help you because your chronic fatigue comes from something else beyond CFS. So I'm really glad, Meredith, that you no longer have multiple chemical sensitivity, at least. And so it sounds like you've also been diagnosed with ME. So, well, thank you so much for your comment, Meredith. And I'm glad that you no longer have MCS, because multiple chemical sensitivity is no fun, that's for sure. Okay, I want to see, did I answer? So Tammy, I don't know if we answered your question. What should I focus on first? We may not have answered this. And oh, hi, Pamela. So Pamela, this is all the same live, and it'll be restreamed. I'm going to share this pretty soon. And this is streaming live on Facebook on my main page and on Chronic Fatigue Support. I'll reshare it to the private group. And then it's also streaming live on YouTube right now. And then, but it'll be, it's all the same interview. Dr. Jenny had to leave because she probably had a patient. But this is the only live going on. But I'm going to end it soon, and then it'll be available as a replay. And this will be available both as a video, and you can also listen to it as an MP3. But the easiest way is just going to be the same format here. So Tammy, I don't know if we answered this, but I'll try to answer this. What should I focus on first? Yeah, again, I think my answer would be just kind of focus on what feels best to you, Dr. Jenny was talking about this too. She was saying, oh, sure, Pamela. She was saying, don't try to rebuild a whole wall. Remember when she said that? You want to maybe focus on one of the walls that's crumbled just a little bit. Yeah, I would say take the path of least resistance. Sometimes it's just, one thing that makes you feel good that can actually start to kind of affect your nervous system and immune system. And I always also try to check in. If I start not feeling well again, it's usually due to severe stress or not getting really good sleep. Or if I find myself not eating well because I'm too stressed, I have too much going on, I always have to remind myself to go back to the basics. I would say, though, if you feel overwhelmed by not knowing where to start with what feels good. That's my best advice, because generally speaking, that's going to help address one of these issues anyway, whether it's CFS or chronic fatigue or whatever you are personally facing. When you focus on what feels good, generally speaking, you are improving your well-being, you're edifying your well-being. So that would be my best advice. And then Tammy says it can be overwhelming with everything. I totally get that. Sure. And I know. And you're saying, Tammy says, I need to do baby steps because doing it all overwhelms me. You're welcome. And Tammy, believe me, I completely get that. And I think that part of the overwhelm, I know it can feel very daunting when we want to feel better, because it feels like such a big hill to climb. And again, maybe there's another way of saying that, to reframe it. However, baby steps does make a difference. And really, I would just say anything that nurtures yourself. I always try to think of self-care. What can I do to take better care of myself today? That, or let me clear my schedule. That can be an act of self-care. It can be something as simple as, if you don't feel like cooking, maybe have some soup, make a cup of tea. Just like I said, I'll climb into bed. I mean, I know that, maybe that doesn't sound super healthy, but my nervous system absolutely loves that sometimes. So, but overwhelm is part of when you're not feeling good. It's easier. Dr. Jenny was addressing this. Your nervous system is in overwhelm because you're not feeling good. So maybe, even though it's hard to remember that there are other ways to feel, just you can tell yourself that, okay, it's okay that I feel overwhelmed because I'm not feeling well. So that being said, I love what you said, Tammy. Just take baby steps. Take one baby step. I would say do one small act of self-care. That's what I would say. And I could probably go on and on here, but I'm gonna I think I'll probably end the stream unless anyone has any other questions. But now, just so you know, I'm gonna interview some other experts. I want to do as many as I can. we have someone else in our private Facebook group that I'm going to hopefully interview soon. We've been in talks. And so, but I love interviewing. I know how much everyone is needing support. And the question I get asked so much is, do you know any practitioners who can help me? So that's why I wanted to interview Dr. Jenny. And my goal is to interview other practitioners, but of course, other experts as well, because it's also just a great conversation to have. And what I've learned is that, and this is what I talk about in my book as well, is that you never know, Dr. Jenny said this too, you never know what piece of information is going to help you. You just never know. And so since these are big topics and, you know, we're dealing with so many different symptoms and conditions, the more you know, the better. Now, not to overwhelm you, but, and, you know, just kind of let it filter in. And I feel like what's meant to help you will find you. I really believe that. But I'm a huge fan of sharing information because, again, my goal is to help as many people as possible with this situation and beyond. And information is power. And those are the things that have helped me. Like I've heard or read a piece of information. It's like, oh, that resonates with me. I'm going to try it. And sometimes it works. You would not believe how many supplements I've tried. I've tried thousands of supplements. I still believe in supplements, absolutely. But nutrition plays a big role. Getting good sleep plays a big role. And I know that can be an issue. But so again, I'm hoping to have more conversations. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, we can continue this conversation online, everybody. And again, thank you for being here. And thanks everybody for all of your comments. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you online. And we'll have another interview soon. Okay. Thanks again to Dr. Jenny. We really appreciate it. Bye, everybody. I'm going to sign off for now. I'll talk to you soon.